Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we are talking about the methods used to establish authoritarian states, persuasion and coercion. Now, just to make sure we're all on the same board here, let's go ahead and talk about what some of these things mean, some of these words. Methods. In this case, it is referring to an action committed either by a person or persons, like a group of people, as a way of accomplishing a goal. Now, the focus of today is persuasion and coercion. So persuasion is the act of convincing or using positive actions to convince somebody. This could be, we could see this used as, if you do this, I'll give you that. If you do this, I'll do this. Right? A positive reinforcement versus coercion. Coercion is the opposite. Coercion is the practice of persuading someone to do something by the use of force or threats. If you don't do this, I'm going to hurt you. If you don't do this, I'm going to break your legs. If you don't do this, I'm going to destroy your car. Right? Force or violence. So when we're focusing on today, we're looking at how the Nazi Party and how Hitler used persuasion and coercion to get people to either join his side or to vote for him. Now, the examples that we're going to be going over today are two, and they're going to be separated in two different parts. You have persuasion, those who supported the Nazis and Hitler, and coercion. Who was Hitler targeting and how was he targeting them to help people join his force or help people pressure those he didn't like? So, support for Hitler and the Nazi Party. Well, the support for Hitler and the Nazi Party came down to four specific groups of people within Germany. The first was wealthy businessmen. Now, the reason why wealthy businessmen really helped support Hitler was the fact that a large part of his rhetoric, a large part of his argument was anti-communist. And a lot of the businessmen and those who were in charge of economics in the country were afraid because communism is going to take away their money, or that the communists want to steal all of their money. So anyone who was against the communists, the wealthy businessmen would want to support. Hitler fit that category nicely. Now the middle class. Hitler gained support from the middle class and was able to persuade support from the middle class because he was constantly, as we talked about in earlier lectures, was constantly showing like, hey, look how weak the system is. Look how weak our government is. Look how ineffectual these policies are. Look how much we are in debt. And he was constantly applying to the everyday Joe, if you will, the everyday person, by saying, you're suffering because of X, Y, and Z. And that resonated a lot with the middle class because they're not rich enough to avoid any of the issues, and they're not poor enough to see and really suffer a lot. They're kind of bouncing in between. So they get the benefits of a positive economy and the negative. They get the positives from the government and the negative. It isn't just one or the other. And so a lot of the middle class looked at Hitler to be like, okay, this guy's got some interesting ideas, and you know, he's saying exactly what I want to hear. He is saying that this system is broken and he can fix it. And the next was the nationalists. The way Hitler persuaded the nationalists was he was quick to blame everything that Germany was suffering from on a minority group, like the Jews, the communists, or how the rest of the world was beating Germany. He talked about how the war guilt clause was horrible and Germany should never have paid it, and that Germany should never have accepted that they were the reasons why the war was fought. In fact, his pro-German stance really sung to the song that the nationalists wanted. They really wanted to hear how he was going to make Germany, well, great again. And that's exactly what they wanted to do. They were very, Germany's the greatest country in the world. It's going to stay the greatest country in the world. And Hitler's rhetoric of, we need to undo the Treaty of Versailles, we need to undo all of these damages that other countries are putting onto us, was exactly what they wanted to know, was exactly what they wanted to hear. And the last was the rural areas. In rural areas, kind of like what you see here, what we are here in the Valley, a lot of them resonated well with Hitler and the Nazis because all of his rhetoric was always, this is what we need to do to improve the country. He seemed very goal-oriented. He seemed very solution-oriented. He always seemed to be able to say and have an answer for whatever your issue was. You know, if the crops are failing, that's because we didn't get enough water to this area because of X. Because of, you know, a minority group. Oh, your land was still... You're part of the 4 million who were taken from our country when the Ruhr crisis occurred. Then you need to help me fight against that. You need to help us fight against the Treaty of Versailles. So the rural areas really resonated with Hitler and his party by saying, like, yeah, you're right. We should fight against these people. Why are they doing that? So each of these 4 groups, Hitler, with essentially the same message, was able to persuade them to come over. Because at the end of the day, his singular massive message is exactly hitting all 4 of these groups. That Germany is a broken country and our government is horrible, and the only way we can make our country great again is if we eliminate the communists, we eliminate the Jews, we overturn the Treaty of Versailles, and we take our country back. Right? That one statement, that sound bite that Hitler did, hits the wealthy, the middle class, the nationalists, and the rural areas. So persuasion for Hitler came quite easily, especially since, as you can see in this photo here, just how charismatic he is. All of these people are very intently focusing on him. Rarely are they focusing on the camera, except that gentleman right there, right? They are hinging on every single word Hitler is using. Now, that was the positive. That was the persuasion. The coercion. Hitler made sure to target anyone that wasn't outwardly supporting the Nazi Party, was Jewish, or was communist. And the way he used coercion was twofold. One was actual violence. Actual violence against these community members. When he would hold a rally and some people would try to go to his rally to block out his voice or make noise so that people can't hear him, they would be beaten up and thrown out of the venue. They would be beaten up and sometimes killed in the middle of his speeches and things like that. It was incredibly intense. The second way that he would target these communities is like this. He would get his SA, right, his as you've heard in the previous lectures, to go about and start labeling businesses, go about and start marking and targeting certain areas to criticize them, but also help get people to start thinking about him. Because when they see these gentlemen here, these Nazi Party members, putting up these sorts of signs, it's leaving a clear message. It's leaving you've heard the stories about when people get beaten up. You've heard what happens. We are here to support Germany only. So like this sign right here. Right here it says, Germany. We no longer need to support the Jews. And all these little posters here talking about some of the protocols of the Elder of Zion and anti-Semitism. But look at these men. They are posting this sign in full military style regalia. And look what this woman is doing. Look how clearly she's getting the message of, if I support here, then these guys might do something to me. Coercion, violence, and threats don't always have to be vocal. Don't always have to be physical. It could be very simple things like this. Right? You've seen in movies where somebody goes to torture somebody, or someone goes to get some information, and they say, I'm not going to ask you again, and they just pull out a gun and put it on the table. Right? That's coercion. Right? The implied threat is there. So let's look at some examples of what is persuasion versus coercion, because sometimes it's really, really hard to see the difference between the two. Right here, we see a woman very clearly reading a sign that was put up by some SA members, right? Germany, defend yourself against the Jewish atrocity propaganda. Buy only German shops, right? This is a clear reference to say, if you don't buy from German shops, you don't support Germany. And if you don't support Germany, we don't like you. That's a pretty decent form of coercion. Now, it can also be seen as a form of persuasion. Because notice how they're not putting their name on it. Notice how they're not attacking a particular person individually. It's, we're going to put this message up, and whoever receives it, receives it. Versus this, right? This is a very clear coercion and persuasion. And there's two ways we can look at this. Persuasion. These three men here, regular guys wearing their outfits, because this is normal attire for the time period, saying, we need to kick out of the Jews to make Germany pure again. Right? If you just look at those first three guys with their signs, all right, cool. Message received. But if you look right behind them, look at all of these military soldiers walking behind them. They have batons. Right? There's an clear, implied threat here. What about this one? Is this persuasion or is it coercion? I'm going to leave it up for a little bit and let you make your mind about it. Notice the military men. Notice the SA symbol. Notice how they're politely engaging with individuals. Like this gentleman's smiling. Is this persuasion or is it coercion? Let's look at this one. Look how they're engaging. Two military members dressed all to the nines. You don't obviously see any weapons. Notice how they're just talking to these people, these potential voters. But notice how they're standing. Notice how one guy is standing over people. This could be seen as coercion. The implied threat of, we're over you, we're watching you, we're always there. And we can see the fact that all of this is a very clear symbol, a very clear sign of the complicated nature between persuasion and coercion. This can be a very nice chat with potential voters and, hey, maybe vote for us. We're trying to restore the country. We're trying to get us out of debt. We also don't like the Jews. Or it could be, if you don't vote for us, they're going to take your money. They're going to come take your land. Who's going to stop the French? Who's going to do this? Fear, fear, and fear. The Nazis had a very, very good control over when they were being persuasive or when they were being coercive. Right? Both of these pictures are a nice juxtaposition of just, is it persuasion or is it coercion? And sometimes the only way we really know is by being there. Both of these pictures can be debated either way. But it's very clear. Persuasion and coercion was a key feature. Using violence, using force, using these symbols to really show how much power or how much energy and effort the Nazi Party used to get that power.